Hello and welcome to this SQL tutorial with me, James from Matador Software. Today we're looking at a very common challenge question. I see this pop up very frequently in sort of interview lists, and the challenge question is to retrieve a list of employees with the same salary. So we're going to look at two simple ways that we can go about this that are quite intuitive. So essentially, I've modified some Northwind data, and all I have is an employee ID, a full name, a title, and a salary. But you can see in 5 of these cases, the salaries match, which is fine because obviously the question is to find where the salaries match. And, in a real world scenario, this may lead stakeholders to go on and do some correlation analysis with the time served in the company. They could be, we could need to update our database with bonuses and so on. So the simplest method to go about this, and the first one we'll actually look at, is just using a subquery. So let's look at how we can do this. So we can just select the relevant fields. I'll just name them all out explicitly: employee ID, full name, title, salary, from that modified employees table. Now we can use our subquery to essentially so we use the where clause, move into our subquery, and we want to select the salary from that modified employees table once more, but we actually want to group this by a salary. And remember, we've used group by, so we'll use having, where the salary has a count of more than 1. So essentially we run that inner query and we can evaluate that against the employee ID, full name, title, and salary. And this will give us the result that we require. But in just a second, I'll show you essentially how SQL goes through this and how this is calculated. So you can see correctly, we have 5 results with matching salaries. And if we then go ahead and get rid of that results, we can actually look at the inner section in the subquery. So we've got select salary from modified employees, and essentially we just group by the salaries where there's a count of more than 1. So simply we have those 2 salaries that are identified. Then with the outer query, we just run our original list that we require against that. So the subquery is very intuitive and a good way to go around this. And quite often I've seen in these interview questions, they may say do this without performing some sort of self-join. So this would satisfy that condition. Now the next thing we can look at is using the where clause. Now the reason potentially this isn't the simplest method, although syntactically it isn't anyway, it may look like it because of the amount of code you have to write. But we do need to use aliases and a bit of out-of-the-box thinking. So it's still a perfectly valid solution, but slightly more complex, I would say. So we start the base query like before, where we just select the employee ID, full name, title, and salary from that modified employees table. But now in the from, we're actually going to reference the table twice, the same table, and give it an alias of T1 and T2 for table 1 and table 2. Then you will notice the error lines because that is now an ambiguous field, employee ID, full name, title, and salary, because they could come from either table. So we need to alias that we'll just use table 1. And we can use the where clause and say where the T1 salary is equal to T2 salary. And you may want to stop there and run the query, but you would notice that this doesn't actually work. So if we run this and execute, we actually just have our initial results reflected. So how do we go around this? Well, we actually can just add and we will also say where the table 1 employee ID is not equal to the table 2 employee ID. I've used exclamation mark and equals for not equal. You could also use less than and greater than operators. And now when we execute this, it runs perfectly. Again, we have those 5 fields that are correct with the matching salaries, and we've answered the question. Like I said, there are ways you can go around this with a self-join or inner joins, so you can go ahead and explore that. But for now, I would likely just stick with the subquery. So feel free to copy this, screenshot, copy the code, try it out. And as usual, if you like the content, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you.